Hey guys, it's Sade. I have really gotten into carving and I wanted to do a quick tutorial for you guys. Also, I really like the material that I was working with, so I wanted to share that with you also. So in this tutorial, we're going to show you how to get from this to this, with a bunch of this in between. So the materials that you'll need are some kind of carving block. What I have here is Factice carving block. You can get soft lino or lino or anything. If you get lino, I don't think you can use an X-Acto blade, but any kind of soft cut material will work. An X-Acto blade, a pencil and pen, some ink, a bone folder or a spoon, a BAREN or a spoon, and some tracing paper. So I'm going to start out with the easiest one. You can draw directly onto your material if you have a really simple design. I'm just drawing it in pencil here, with the black parts being the parts that I will leave behind. One thing that you want to make sure is that you're not cutting straight down. I think that's the inclination, but actually what you should be doing is cutting at a 45-degree angle away from the material that you want to leave. Why is that? Because that allows your stamp to have a good stable base. A triangle is much more stable than a square. And by cutting at a 45-degree angle, you're going to give your stamp sloping sides just like a triangle. If you cut the other way, 45 degrees inwards, your stamp is definitely going to break. So I'm just trying to show you how I'm cutting 45 degrees away from my stamp. And also make sure to cut away from yourself. Don't cut towards yourself, please. That's a really good way to get hurt. I haven't hurt myself yet, but here's fingers crossed. So if you have gouges and you're using that, you don't need to do this part. But when you're using an X-Acto knife, you need to cut both sides of the 45-degree angle in order to cut out the material. So after you cut 45 degrees away, then cut 45 degrees in the other direction to lift up that material. So you can see I'm just going around the whole teardrop. And that's it. It's pretty simple. Doing that again, this time with more of an outline shape instead of a filled in shape. So I'm starting with the inside, doing 45 degrees away from the part that I want to keep, which is my black line. And then I'm also cutting out the outside of the line. And you see, I'm turning the material as I'm cutting. Some people think that it's better to keep your hand with the blade straight and only turn. Some people only push the blade. For me, I feel like I have a pretty good balance between stability and quickness by doing both. But I think if I really wanted to be really nice and detailed, I would only turn the block, but I would need to have more patience then. So there's a big chunk in the middle of this. How I do that is by cutting 45-degree angles all the way through. And you end up with a pretty deep hole. And just like the other one, I cut this one out. It's just very loose because this part isn't actually forming it. It's just to get the thing out. And what I like to do is I like to cut another 45-degree angle after what I've already cut out and go around that again, just so I have like an extra wide berth. Now it's time for the big guns. Just chop that out. If you want, you can leave a bigger, flatter base, but then you need to be really careful about lowering the rest of the stamp. I also like to just round off the edges so it's a little cleaner, but it's not really necessary. Actually, you probably shouldn't cut like this. Don't be like me, kids. So I'm just going to do the same thing to the other teardrop because it was looking not as well kept as the other one. So let's clean it up a little. Great. So that was the easy stuff. Now I'm going to do this butterfly. It may look familiar to you. This is the Marsh Fritillary that I did for the Animal Arts Collective this month in July. I really wanted to get this done in time for the collective, but I couldn't. But I still wanted to do it for this month. So this is just a sketch of the butterfly that I'm going to put onto this stamp. Now, first of all, what some people like to do is tone the surface of the stamp because then it makes it easier to see what parts you've cut through and what parts you haven't. If you're really lucky and you can get Japanese vinyl, that is already that way and it has 2 different colors and you don't have to worry about this. Some people use India ink or China ink for this purpose. That's what I learned in the print class that I took in undergrad for like half a semester. But the problem with that for me anyway is that then you can't see the graphite transfer. So what I used is a fairly lightly colored Copic marker because I know that can be rubbed off with alcohol. So put your transfer paper on top of the block, line it up, and then tape it down. Use a bone folder or a pencil or a spoon and just rub all over your design. Check to make sure that it's transferred. I want it to be a little more, so I'm going to do a little more rubbing. That looks good enough. Okay. Now, what I like to do just to make sure stuff is super duper clear and I can't smudge it is I like to outline and fill in all of my design. I'm using a Rotring Tiki pen. It's a pigment-based pen and that way I don't have to worry about the graphite smudging and it's also super duper clear what I'm cutting and what I'm not cutting. So let's get cutting. Basically, this is exactly the same as we did with the teardrop. You start on the outside using a 45-degree angle away, and you just keep going from there. You would think that it's more complicated, but it really isn't. That's about it. Just have patience and don't try to rush, because if you try to rush, you're going to cut straight through your design, and that is no fun at all because you can't fix it. Can you imagine if you spent hours carving out your design and then you were impatient? And then you can just pull it out like that. Look at that. Isn't that fun? So first step. Now let's go into the details. And just the same way, I just carve out each of the little pieces. Oh, a good tip, if you're cutting something round, it's a really good idea to rotate the block and hold your hand still. That's the easiest way to get nice, smooth circles. It's a lot harder if you're trying to push your blade through the material. You'll more likely come out with jagged edges. So a little bit about this material. I've been using a couple of other materials. There's the soft cut and there's the regular lino. But I found that I really like something that's similar to an eraser in texture, and this is perfect. This is just like working with eraser. It is so nice and smooth, and I don't have to put a lot of pressure in order to cut through it, and it cuts really cleanly. I really, really love it. It takes a transfer really well. It doesn't smell. It gives a good impression. It takes ink well. I mean, it makes sense that it's very similar to an eraser since Factus, the company, makes German erasers as well. So you can basically think about this as a humongous eraser. I also really like that this is vinyl, so I don't really have to worry about latex allergies. A lot of these soft cut plates are made out of rubber and I can't use those because natural rubber is latex. So you see I'm doing a couple of circles here, spinning it around to get those circles. Those little tiny dots took forever. It was really nice to do this carving. It's interesting because there's a physicality to carving that I guess I don't sense with watercolors. I don't really know why that's the case, but something about it is really calming. So I'm just cutting out the entirety of the butterfly now. It's just really big chunks. And then I'm using my big X-Acto blade to break it free, like a bird or a butterfly. By the way, Olfa cutters are amazing. If you're looking for what type of safety blade to get, I would definitely recommend an Olfa blade. Of course, most of the time I was not using an Olfa blade. I was just using some really super generic blade, so any blade will do, but the Olfa blade is so sharp. I was shocked. Okay, we're all done. Very nice. Next is the fun part. Now you should check your stamp. Now you were thinking, I just get to stamp now, right? No, you should check your stamp. On a big thing like this, it's better to put the paper onto your stamp, and it's better to put the ink on this way. This is the VersaFine Clair. It's really nice for details, and it is also waterproof. So I'm just using a regular piece of printer paper. The thing about putting this paper is you just have to be decisive. Just put it down. Don't be fussing about because you might move the paper and then mess up the print. So you see all of those lines around there? We don't want those. So you have to go in and cut your stamp so that you don't have those anymore. Re-ink it up and check it as many times as you need to. Also, you can use a spoon instead of a BAREN. Actually, this BAREN is not a very good BAREN. I would not recommend it. It's better to just buy one of the super cheap Japanese ones. I still have a couple of little problems there, so I went back in and cut that out. You can see how I do it a little bit here. Super tiny details. Also, make sure to clean your stamp before you do this because the little particles can mess up your print as well. They kind of look like they have a halo. So you see there's a couple more things, but I keep doing this until I get to it nice where I want it to be, and then I break out the printing paper. That's the nice paper. Okay, what's it gonna look like? Ta-da! So I made two versions of this print, one with and one without watercolor. Here is the aftermath. I have already sent these two prints out to their new owners, but I will have prints up in my store for you to buy if you want your own handmade print of a Marsh Fritillary in ink, and my patrons will be able to get this at a discounted price. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that you guys go try your hand at carving because it's kind of awesome. And let me know how it goes. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below and I will try to answer them if I know the answer. Thank you so much for watching. Shout out to my patrons for being the best. See you next time. Bye.